EJ Smith of The Inquirer is here to adjudicate a bunch of things that Zach Berman and I disagree on, from Jonathan Gannon's fitness to Josh Sweat versus Bryce Huff in 2024 and much more. Maybe we'll even get into peeing sitting down. Coming up next on the PHLY Eagles Podcast. Welcome to the PHLY Eagles Podcast, a Tuesday high noon. Wulf, Zach Berman, and if you're watching live, you can see in the middle the man of the hour, the judge himself, EJ Smith of The Inquirer. EJ, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, I wish I had brought like a gavel or something. You know, I could have stopped at like a Party City.
You know what I do? I have the priest robe from the Christian Ellis sermon. That we could have used that as a judge.
Relevant
yeah.
I think what you wore is terrific. You're the best dressed one here. You have Bo in his Cape Cod casual today.
This is not Cape Cod. This is a white shirt.
But no,
shirt.
Yeah, this is a sharp dressed man right here.
The shirt is actually in a commercial, and they're kind of making fun of it.
Oh,
and that's only made me more attached to the shirt.
I think it's a good shirt.
You want to make fun of the shirt?
What's the commercial?
It's like, I don't know what brand it is, but they're talking about the shirt, and it's like, I like the shirt. It's kind of like a cow, but flowers. And you know what? I'm going for it.
I don't know anybody who would take somebody making fun of their shirt as a sign that they need to wear it more.
It's like made me entrenched. I'm like, I like this shirt. I'm not giving up this shirt.
Yeah, so, you're fresh off the barber stool as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say I should have went with like the Judge Lee mustache instead of the beard today, just for the show. But you know, I don't think my wife would have been a big fan of that decision.
Did they ask you about Jalen Hurts at the barbershop today?
My barbers actually don't speak very much English.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay,
maybe they did. I didn't understand.
Did you talk Euros? I know you've been watching a lot of Euros.
I think they're more Copa America people, which is kind of like Euros after dark.
Yes.
But yeah, not a lot of soccer talk. So yeah.
Okay. Well, we got a lot to get into.
Yeah.
We're ready to do it.
They asked you about Jonathan Gannon.
They did not ask me about, surprisingly so, they did not ask me about Jonathan.
I did, the pew, that is a gift for you, for you coming in.
Close.
Thank you very much. You do a very good job at that. And that's why we love it, EJ. Okay. The conceit of the episode is Zach and I have, disagreements that range from small to larger. And I'd like to just sort of, you can be the neutral party here. You've seen what we've seen. You follow this team as closely as we do. Let's sort of get your take on some of these things.
I love it. Yeah.
All right. Let's start with Zach's boy, Josh Sweat. This was his proposal.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks head to head, Josh Sweat will have a better year in 2024 than Bryce Huff. Where do you stand on the expectations for the projected edge rushers for the Eagles?
So I'm going to side with Bo on this one. And I apologize.
I think you're going to utter that expression quite a bit today.
No, I'm not. And I was worried that that's what you were going to say when I said that.
That's okay.
I think I'm going to try and be neutral, objective here. I might sit the fence on a couple of these, but I think when you evaluate the two players, I think with Josh Sweat, the floor, I think, is quite lower. The way last year ended is concerning. And I think when you search for reasons that might have been the case, you have to start to wonder if the medical side of things is contributing to that at all. So I think when you look at Bryce Huff's projection, because both of these players are a projection. When you look at Bryce Huff, you're thinking more about, is his efficiency going to take a significant hit with a bigger role? I think I'd rather bet on a player that's been productive in a smaller role, being somewhat at least productive, maybe not as efficient as he was with the Jets, but still productive in an expanded role. Whereas Josh Sweat, there's just a lot that we don't know about whether or not he's going to be the player we saw in 2022, in the first half of 2023, or if he's going to continue in that downward trajectory we saw at the end of the 2023 season.
Look, that's fair, and honestly, I'm not pounding the table for this one here, but
is it kind of a thrill to get to see him pound the table in person?
I love it. Yeah. I can feel like my dog jump up from the microphone.
Yeah. I think I think Bryce Huff has a lot of upside, and certainly, we spent 3 weeks doing free agency shows where I talked about it. If they were to move on from Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat would be, Bryce Huff would be an ideal target. I think there is some recency bias to Josh Sweat's reputation right now, because the backstretch of last season was bad. There's no doubt about it. The 17 games, though, from the middle of 2022 to the middle of 2023, a 17-game sample size there, he had 15 sacks in those 17 games, right? And that's a better stretch than almost any edge rusher in the NFL during that period. And then you look at it, Bryce Huff's coming off a good year, 10-sack season. He's going to take an increase in snaps, but I think one thing that's kind of missing there is the increase is going to be more early down play. He was a designated pass rusher with the Jets. So it's not now, I think invariably he'll rush the quarterback more because teams do throw the ball on first and second down. But he was in obvious pass rush situations before. So this is to say that the 10 sacks that he had, which is really good. I mean, the Eagles had a stretch of 5-6 years where nobody had double-digit sacks. Bryce Huff did that as a designated pass rusher last year. But maybe the 10 sacks is like the type of player he is. Whereas Josh Sweat has shown the type of his high watermark has been higher than Bryce Huff's. And before last year, Bryce Huff, his seasons were like Josh Sweat's last 8 games there. Now, that said, obviously Josh Sweat played a lot of snaps, was not productive, and as Bo would point out, and Bo's absolutely correct about this, the league told you what they thought about Josh Sweat. The reason Josh Sweat took a pay cut is because presumably he wasn't going to get more than that this year. But I think Josh Sweat going into a contract year with that type of talent, I would not be surprised if Josh Sweat has more pass rush production than Bryce Huff.
I actually think it's helpful to have your perspective on Josh Sweat, because I think you're right that the recency bias is probably a little bit too negative, because he did totally disappear at the end of last season and maybe he wasn't well suited to play all of those snaps. But the simple truth is that the Eagles are telling you who they are expecting to have a better season. They're paying one guy $17 million and another guy $10 million. And that means that it's not even particularly close in terms of their expectations.
I would disagree there because it's motivated by like the open market in that case. Now you can say Josh Sweat essentially saw his market value and that he took a pay cut. Presumably he understood what the league was going to pay him this year, but the Eagles were competing on an open market against Bryce or against an open market for Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff is younger, and the intrigue of a player with upside always kind of commands more. I think that people, when I say people, I hate doing that. I think there's a lot of recency bias.
People?
No. When you hear you hear reporters or commentators say, people say this. Like, who are these people that say
the
that?
straw man. Yeah.
Exactly. I actually, a pet peeve of mine in press conferences is when someone's like, what's your response to what this, like what people say about you? It's like, who are these people? Are you saying it about me? Right. So I like Bryce Huff, but all I'm telling the audience, and I'm telling you, don't forget about 15 sacks in 17 games. That's hard to do.
Number 19? Don't forget about number 19.
Don't forget about number 19.
I'm not a fan. Yeah. I feel like it's like the number change from the NFL did a few years ago. I generally liked it, and now that we're getting the edge rushers wearing wide receiver numbers, it's a little bit. It's a bridge
gone too far,
I would say.
Okay, let's stick with the defensive line, and a player who I think on the flip side I am a little bit higher on than Zach is Milton Williams, the third defensive tackle for the Eagles. I think that the Eagles should be looking to extend Milton Williams. Zach believes there's a better chance that he's going to hit the open market. Partially, I think, because he thinks, I don't want to speak for you, but Milton Williams is motivated to get to the open market as opposed to taking a discount. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I was looking for like recent examples of Eagles draft picks that have been semi-productive, as I would characterize Milton Williams. He hasn't been like, a dominant player, but he has been productive for them. I feel like there aren't many examples of players like that they've let walk out the door. I mean, like Rasul Douglas, but he was a little bit less of a proven commodity than Milton Williams is at this point. I'm a little bit more fence sitting on this one, but I lean toward agreeing that like they should probably get it done sooner rather than later. If he has a good year this year, then his price will go up. And then I might go back to Zach's side where if the price gets too high, they can't justify having Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, and Milton Williams long term. So I think it really is going to depend on how this year goes for him. And I do think it would be wise to probably get him into a longer term extension before he gets to this year, because I think he has shown enough that he is, especially in an odd front, I think he has a role in this defense.
I mean, he's 25 years old. This is to your point, like, it is not usually the Eagles' business to let a homegrown ascending player get out the door.
Yeah, I don't think the Eagles want him to get out the door. I think this is a situation where it might be better business for Milton Williams to go somewhere else to get paid. And EJ's right. There's not a lot of precedent for this. The Eagles usually keep their best players at positions of value in-house. This isn't like talking about Miles Sanders or TJ Edwards.
TJ Edwards, mind, yes.
I think the best example is probably Derek Burgess. And I know we're kind of going
back.
I know we're going back here.
That's the best example.
Derek Burgess was a third-round pick, okay, who was a rotational starter. He started 11 games in 2004 for the Eagles. He goes to Oakland and becomes like a focal point of their pass rush, has 16 sacks as a Pro Bowler, second-team All-Pro. He left because the Eagles had high-paid players in front of him, right? Javon Curse was under contract, right? And I look at this like Milton Williams. I agree, he fits in the odd front. First off, we don't know how long the Eagles are going to have this front.
Yeah.
Number one, I mean, you would hope that Vic Fangio said it's his last job. There is a scenario where the Eagles clean house after this year.
Sure.
But regardless, even if he has that role, Jalen Carter's the top guy. Okay. We know that. We'll see what happens with Jordan Davis, but Jordan Davis is someone that the Eagles are heavily invested into here. And we don't know what type of pass rushing opportunities Milton Williams is going to get. There's a chance that if Milton Williams hits the open market at that age with that skill set, he's one of the most desired defensive tackles. It's frankly like what Bryce Huff was with the Jets last year, where you have guys you spent draft capital on, and there's this young ascending player who can have a bigger role elsewhere. So, I think the Eagles would like to keep him, but I think it behooves Milton Williams to hit the open market.
It's almost like, obviously they're very different defensive tackles. They might play the same position. They play it completely differently. But I feel like Milton Williams is almost a hedge against Jordan Davis in the sense that, like, they want to have multiple high-end pass rushers at that position. And like with what we've seen from Jordan Davis, you can't be certain that he's going to be that player. I feel like Milton Williams kind of like increases your percentage chance that you have a running mate for Jalen Carter. Maybe you have to switch the way your front mechanics are. Maybe you need to have, a 4-3 where you have the three techniques instead of a guy who's going to play the nose. Or maybe you just,
Or we just take him off the field.
Yeah, or you just get another nose tackle, I guess. But,
that's part of the thing. It's like, it is a replaceable thing.
Yeah, it's a very easy thing to find. But, still, I do think that it kind of increases the percentage chance. I guess it lowers the risk that in 2 years, they've got Jalen Carter and nobody else on that interior. Because that becomes a problem.
No doubt about it. Go ahead.
I am. Now, this is like really ambitious from Milton Williams' camp, okay? But do you think there's a part of him that says, like, I could be Justin Madubuike somewhere? Justin Madubuike was a 5.5 sack player 2 years ago. Kind of like he's similarly this tweener DN tackle type. He has a huge year in 2023, and he's a $20 million a year plus defensive tackle. Defensive tackles are getting paid huge on the open market. As I said, I don't see
if he has that kind of year, he gets franchised.
Sure, but I don't see why Milton Williams would take a discount.
I think you're right. I do think you're right about that. And you mentioned it. Like, I'm just looking at their draft history. It is like anybody who they drafted in the first 3-4 rounds who played of any significance, who they let go after their rookie deal expired, is it's Nelson Aguilar basically. Yeah. And even him, they did end up bringing back for 1 year. It's like, Andre Dillard, I guess, if you want.
Not O-line, D-line, yeah. I mean, you have to look at a Miles Sanders type to see precedent for that. Yeah.
Now let's depart from the making Zach and I fight against each other and just sort of stick on the defensive tackle there. You mentioned Jordan Davis. What are your expectations for Jordan Davis? What are realistic expectations?
It's really tough. I feel like at the beginning of last season, there were some high level reps from him as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
and then it just sort of waned away. And I'll be honest with you, like the best shape of my life off-season storylines are always, taken with a grain of salt. And I feel like we heard the same things from Jordan Davis last year around this time during training camp. I remember I wrote stories where I was like, what kind of things were you doing that, because he talks about being in better shape. And he kind of gave us the same thing last year where it was like, I'm, walking more, I'm more active. I feel like
out,
yeah, I just feel like it's kind of the same exact thing we heard last offseason. So I didn't really buy it. I do think he looks better, but I think
so. Yeah.
I think he's one of those guys where it's like, we'll know in November if it's actually the case, and listen, I mean, again, he's
like we've seen the flashes. The jump is to maintain that level.
To be consistent through the season. And I think maybe he's the type of guy who maybe like it's harder to maintain the weight in the season than out of season. Some guys I feel like are the other way, where like during the season it's hard to keep weight on. Yeah. I know Lane Johnson has talked about that before, but I just think the hope is that as he does this more and more, he learns more about how to manage it. Because I think that the upside is still very much there. You've seen it on the field. In NFL games, we've seen him do really impressive things. So I think the upside's still there. But yeah, I'm kind of like still in a wait and see mode based off of the offseason. I know people are maybe bullish. Sorry, I'm doing the people thing here.
That's fine.
I know that there are some people that are bullish on him based off of this offseason, but in the way that he looks. But I think we're going to know in October and November if it's actually worked.
Let me ask you this: do you think that he needs to be a difference-making pass rusher for them to feel satisfied with the player he is?
What's funny is like I think that there was a path where he is one of the 5 best run-stuffing nose tackles, and he's still like a justifiable first-round pick, especially when you base it off of like Kyle Hamilton's the other option.
Yeah.
Like I think that I would have seen a pathway where they could have been happy. But let's be clear, like Howie Roseman came out and said, like, we think he can affect the passer.
Yep. Yes.
They've kind of set the bar, like he has to affect the passer to make that first round pick worthy. I think like he might have even gone so far as saying like, if he's only playing on early downs and that wasn't worth a first round pick. We talked about how easy it is to find nose tackles like the Linval Josephs of the world. You can find guys who can play. I mean, Marlon Tuipulotu is not a bad early down nose tackle. Like, you can find those guys, later in the draft, in free agency. It's not, you don't use first round picks on those types of players typically. So even though I would see the value in a Vic Fangio scheme having a guy like Jordan Davis, even if he doesn't affect the passer, I think the Eagles have told you what they want out of that investment. So
and to tie the previous question, do you guys think it's either or? For long-term, Milton Williams or Jordan Davis? Like, do you see a way that they
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you could have both. I think, again, like, especially 2025, 2026, like the...
Right, you're going to get 5 years of Jordan Davis.
Yeah, I think, like, you kind of would actually like to have both of them because you do want to increase that likelihood that you have somebody next to Jalen Carter that can affect the quarterback.
And especially if they're playing those odd fronts. You need,
you get all three of them
at least
on the field.
3 of those guys.
Yeah.
Listen, there is real precedent for defensive tackles taking that leap in year 3.
Sure,
For whatever reason, that position often takes longer. I also think that as much as I would have framed it in the beginning that Jordan Davis has to turn into this pass rusher in order for this pick to be successful, the way that things have worked out retroactively now, if there is a way that Jordan Davis by force of power and like the attention that he is bringing, if he is that good of a run stuffer, if that is then opening things up for Jalen Carter to go from great to amazing, then maybe that sort of justifies the pick. So along with that, what are your expectations for Jalen Carter?
Yeah, I mean, I think with him, he showed it in his rookie season. We talked about, you just mentioned, like sometimes it takes defensive tackles some time. It really didn't take him very much time. Now, he tailed off toward the end of the season like the rest of the group.
Right.
But
maybe that is like, we're talking, Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, everybody on the defense fell off a cliff at the end of the last season. Is maybe that's enough to just sort of wave it all away and be like, just chalk it up to everybody was dealing with whatever nonsense was going on that side of the ball.
Maybe. It's an interesting point. I think it was still concerning that he hit the wall. Again, it's probably the type of thing you learn from it, you improve on it. But yeah, I think that I feel like this defense is going to be more centered on him this year, and I feel like he's ready for that. Like, I mean, interior pass rushers are like the most valuable thing you can have. Probably on a defense.
Pushing the pocket.
Well, that's the way to get to Brady. Because Brady can sense the stuff coming from the edge, but he wants to step up in the pocket. If you can get him up the middle, Then all of a
Listen,
sudden,
I was writing
gas.
those stories like 2 or 3 years ago at least, so I feel like I wasn't late to that, interior presser party. But still, I mean, I think that he is going to be the focal point of that front, and I think he's ready for it. I mean, he's incredibly talented. I think all of the things that we talked about this time last year with him, like in terms of like they got an incredibly talented player, and he just has to stay, basically has to learn how to be a professional. And I mean, in terms of like his on-field product, it's been what we'd expect. So I think that he's going to be the focal point. I think he's ready for it, like you said.
If I could sneak a Jalen Carter question in, because
I think we're both going there, yeah.
To give you some behind the scenes here, Bo and I, we kind of talk about the shows, and when we talk about having you on, we said, how are we going to plan this? And we wanted to talk about current events, but I said, I do want to kind of pick his brain on some
on the debate, or
no, on some of his stories that he's done in the past, and I very much believe in like the Atticus Finch. You know someone better when you walk in their shoes, and of the three of us, you're the only one who's been in his home, who's seen, who has that type of perspective. So this is a long-winded way of saying I kind of puffed you up there, but what perspective do you have on Jalen Carter, having been down there in in Florida, seeing where he grew up, seeing his family, that informs you about the type of player and person that he is?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I appreciate you saying that. It's interesting that you say that. I feel like when I went down there, obviously everybody knows the reputation that he comes with and the things that he did at Georgia. The car accident, some of the decisions he made. So I was a little bit surprised when I went down there, just by his personality, and the people around him. It's not quite what you would expect. You guys know him now. He's a pretty soft-spoken guy, kind of like mild-mannered. I think obviously he flips the switch on the football field, and you hear stories about that. Obviously got into a fight with a teammate in practice at Georgia. Mm-hmm. So I was a little bit surprised with his demeanor when I met him, and the people around him all have that similar demeanor, very soft-spoken, very, kind of like that Southern hospitality, I would say. So, and then when you talk to people who knew him as a kid, knew him growing up, they really do. I mean, it kind of opened my eyes to like the other side of his personality. And listen, like, I'm not excusing the decisions he made at Georgia. I think that's part of his story. And like the people around him would tell you, like, he needs to grow up from that. He needs to learn from that. They acknowledge that he made mistakes. But yeah, I guess what I left Apopka, Florida with is like the understanding that it's like a little bit more complex than, I guess the basic understanding that I had going in is like, I think the Eagles wanted him to, learn how to become a pro, like I said earlier, learn how kind of just to grow up and become an adult. He's 20, 21 years old. I think that the infrastructure the Eagles had was good for him. Having a player like Fletcher Cox, having a guy like Brandon Graham around him was important. Obviously, Fletcher Cox isn't there anymore. He's going to have to grow up fast now. But I do think that the biggest thing that I left Apopka with was like, man, this is a little bit more complex than like what I expected it to be coming down there. There's layers to the story that I hope I kind of revealed in my story that go beyond just like this guy made a terrible mistake in Georgia, has some growing up to do. I think that again, at the very least, his personality kind of did surprise me.
Well said. Good stuff. You can, of course, read that story. If you Google it, and then you'll come across it.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
You can go to the Inquirer and find it.
Well, it's going to lead you there. And I don't know the direct link off the top of my head. But,
Yes.
The HTTP.
I'm just betting on that search engine over the Inquirer search engine. No offense.
Yeah.
All right. Zach had game 2 of the softball season last night. We can go over that later in the show if you want. Something's a little bit heavy on me about that, but when you're playing softball, you know what you're doing. You're sucking them back because a lot has changed over the years, and one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. Another thing that hasn't changed is that it remains less filling. So what is the best thing about the original light beer? Well, good news is it doesn't matter. Great taste, less filling, great taste. How about both? Por qué no los dos? Miller Lite sparked this debate in 1975, and we still haven't settled it. And we're still having those delicious Miller Lites when it's time to hang out with your friends and make some memories. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975 tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY Birds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
I'm going to tell you about Rite Aid's pharmacy service, but before I do, I got to say, we got a box of treats from Rite Aid here. It included the electrolyte water. Man, I was rolling yesterday with that electrolyte water from Rite Aid. It's not just typical bottled water. It has the electrolytes in there. Actually, I was floating it around, showing everybody, look, this is like enhanced water here.
Zach was rolling, everybody.
And you can get that exclusively at Rite Aid. But also, you have prescriptions, and the prescriptions are running low, and you're saying, "Oh man, what do I need to do?" Well, if you have a My Pharmacy account at Rite Aid, you don't have to worry because they will refill your prescriptions for you. You can enroll in automated courtesy refills. It's free, easy, and most prescriptions qualify. All you need to do is talk with your Rite Aid pharmacist or sign up through your My Pharmacy account at riteaid.com. Restrictions may apply, but get your prescriptions at the same time with one-trip refills. So if there's multiple people in your house and there's different prescriptions, time it all up at once. Ask your pharmacist to sync your medications so you can pick them up in one visit. You can sync with other family members too. Just ask your local Rite Aid pharmacist to get started. Restrictions may apply. You can also manage your prescriptions with the Rite Aid mobile app, transfer or refill your prescriptions, set up reminders, and enroll in notifications. Transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today. Just go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid caring pharmacists are ready to answer your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything at Rite Aid you may need, including over-the-counter medicines, household products, cosmetics, and more, and electrolyte water. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Restrictions apply.
It's going to be an influx of customers to Rite Aid asking for the Molly water.
Molly water? No,
Yes.
it's electrolyte water. So electrolytes are important, especially if you got a workout going. Those electrolytes can
Make you roll.
Can electrocute you.
Yeah, they electrify yourself during it.
EJ, I don't want to speak for you, but I do believe you are a little hipper than Zach and me.
I don't know
a
about
younger
that.
man.
I'm an old soul. I take pride in that. Yeah.
I believe that. I have an I'm an old person question for you.
Okay.
This is one that I just don't get this one. It's not for me. It's new lingo, but it's giving.
Oh yeah, I hate it. Yeah.
Like, finish the sentence. I don't understand.
No,
Like,
that is the sentence. Though.
I know,
Yeah.
but
It's
It's
like
giving?
TikTok.
What?
Yeah, it's like TikTok jargon.
that shirt. It's giving hippie cow.
Or
Like,
just it's giving sometimes. It's like it's giving. My sister,
like
God bless my
it's giving
sister.
something vibes. Like, give me the last.
No, it's just giving.
I keep waiting for the sentence to be finished.
My sister will say it's not giving what it needs to give.
Well, that's a sentence though.
Yeah, but it's not.
That makes sense.
It's
to me.
almost. It's like barely a sentence. It's not giving what it
But
needs
it's like
to give.
you're describing something like it's got the vibes of something else, and you say it's giving so and so.
It's giving Cape Cod vibes, right?
No.
Oh.
No, just like
Oh,
it's
it
giving
just-
Cape Cod. Is how
You would say it's giving Cape Cod.
Oh, it's giving. Okay, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Cape Cod is colorful. That's the
Oh,
whole,
really?
like,
Okay.
yeah. That's
That's Cape Cod. Like I would say that's a Cape Cod color scheme. It's
a
blue.
white and
it's
blue
like blue,
shirt.
brown, and white. Like that's like what all the
you
houses
guys are
out
nuts.
there. I love Cape Cod.
This is
I
like
got nothing wrong with-
positionless.
You know what my understanding of Cape Cod is, honestly? And Bo's going to laugh
The
when
potato
when he-
chips?
What's that?
The potato chip.
No, the movie Summer Catch.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I
The guy,
remember
he
that.
played Freddie Prinze Jr. He plays for the Phillies at the end of the movie. Ken Griffey Jr. goes yard on him. And, spoiler, but it's been like 15 years right now, right? But yeah, that's my. I've never been to Cape Cod, but that's my understanding of Cape Cod is Summer Catch.
I'm a fan of Cape Cod. I'm a fan of going north in the summer. Nice and cool. You know?
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah.
Okay. You're with me on it's giving.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it's giving. I'm not a fan of any of the TikTok.
It's
like,
not for me. It doesn't have to. I don't have to like it, but I don't.
kids these days.
Yeah, these kids get off my porch. All right, let's talk about another story that you have done because it rolls in here. A couple of Houston-based quarterbacks. EJ.
Yeah.
You've spent some time with Jalen Hurts' family.
That sounds a little creepy.
It's made me jealous. Kept me up at night. Yes.
It's giving. I don't know.
Yeah, I
got
don't
nothing.
know. I don't know what
Adam's
it's giving.
family. I don't know. Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud. Now Zach is on the side of the argument here that he would rather have Jalen Hurts moving forward than CJ Stroud. I am right in thinking I would rather have CJ Stroud. How about you?
I'm going to go with Zach on this one.
Really?
Yeah, I really am. Now,
Really?
It's because, listen, you got to look at a sample size.
Thank you.
You know, because
Thank you.
trajectory, you would definitely say CJ Stroud. I mean, he's awesome. I'm not saying CJ Stroud's not good.
It doesn't have the you're not binded by the early draft pick here. Good for you.
I like CJ Stroud.
The draft pedigree, yeah.
I like CJ Stroud, but I saw what happened in 2022.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I feel like CJ Stroud could very well be the 2022 Jalen Hurts career arc. He could struggle next season, and then they would be exactly where they're supposed to. Where they'd be in the same spot. So I feel like when you're looking at body of work, I would take the quarterback that's been to a Super Bowl, that was MVP caliber in 2022, and we were talking about the pass rushers, like just hand wave 2023. You could very well say in 2024 that the Eagles offense will look a lot better with a better play caller and more weapons than they had last season. So again, I think CJ Stroud's great. But I think that when you look at what Jalen Hurts did in 2022, I don't know. It's like quarterbacks.
Channel of you must be watching.
Yeah. Well, I got to go back there. I've been spending a lot of time there now. But yeah, no, I do feel like when you're looking at the full body of work from Jalen Hurts, you can't get wrapped up in the 1 year from CJ Stroud. I think that there's still plenty of time for him to struggle or to continue to be as incredible as he was last season. So if you were giving me like, if I had to pay them both the same amount of money next year, I probably would go with Jalen Hurts instead of CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I've seen it. The high watermark for Jalen Hurts was an MVP player, MVP caliber player. He's a better runner than CJ Stroud is. CJ Stroud, what I was really impressed with last year was he barely turned the ball over, right? I mean, his interception rate was among the best in the league, whereas Jalen Hurts, the interceptions were up. But a year prior, Jalen Hurts barely turned the ball over, right? I think in this league, a lot of it's about the counterpunch, and that's why sample size matters. Teams now have an entire offseason to see CJ Stroud, to see him function in that Texans offense, which they never did. Now, the Texans improved their skill position players, and there's often a jump from first year starting to second year starting. Jalen Hurts is evidence of that, right? So we can expect CJ Stroud to be better this year. But I can't get 2022 out of my mind. And I even think last year, Jalen should have played better. But if that was a down year for Jalen, that wasn't like a horrible year.
Sure.
And so I still would feel Jalen's a safer bet based on the high watermark and based on the sample size.
Now, the one thing I would point out, though, is like if you're worried about the floor for both of these quarterbacks, I do think that like there are more tangible concerns with where Jalen Hurts is right now. Again, that's somewhat tied up in trajectory, but we're probably going to talk about running backs at some point, and like, oh, Jalen doesn't throw it to running backs, and like maybe that's a Jalen thing and not an offensive system. A mechanic of the offensive system. The way that Jandal has handled pressure in his career, I do think there are some yellow flags that you could point to with Jalen that maybe you can't point to with CJ Stroud at this point. But again, I'm always wary of like flash in the pan quarterback play. Like, and I'm not saying CJ Stroud is a flash in the pan. I think he's awesome, but like, I do like to see it for a couple of years before I really get on board with somebody being like, a Super Bowl caliber quarterback.
That's fair. And, there is history in the NFL of sort of false positives from rookie quarterbacks. That said, listen, I mean, I have high expectations for Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback. I think the Eagles are in good hands with him as the quarterback. But the one really elite year we've seen from him was everything was set up for his success. Yeah. I mean, he had an amazing offensive line. He had A.J. Brown and DeVante Smith and Dallas Goedert all at the height of their powers. He had the second-year play caller. And the seasons when he hasn't had everything perfect, it's been good. Last year was good. C.J. Stroud did it as a rookie with an entirely new staff and like an array of weapons that did not look like it compared to the Eagles. And a defense that wasn't as good, and an offensive line that wasn't as good.
It was still a decent situation, though. I mean, it was a good staff.
Fine situation.
They've got some talent on that team, and they have a good front too, which is important.
But they look a lot better now because of how he played. I feel like he lifted them a little bit more than maybe Jalen was part of this overall rise for that season. At the same time, that Super Bowl game, I've never seen a quarterback play a better game.
Yeah, right.
So. No, I don't. I think it's clearly C.J. Stroud to me, but I think this is a fair argument.
I've been wrong about quarterbacks in the past. I was very much bullish on the idea that Justin Fields would be an MVP candidate in the Eagles offense. So
you did love Justin Fields.
I still he's exactly my type of quarterback. So I really toolsy. If you can do everything like Justin Fields can, even if you are maybe bad, I'm always a traits guy with quarterbacks. So yeah, Justin Fields is my kryptonite.
I mean, if you go back and you watch Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, right? You would Justin Fields' game against Clemson. You talk about how Jalen Hurts is Super Bowl. It's hard to play better. The way Justin Fields played in a losing effort against Clemson, it's hard to play better.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Kellen Moore now. Zach has made the case that one way or another, Kellen Moore's here for 1 year. Essentially, that if the Eagles don't have a good year on offense, they're cleaning house, and if they have a good year on offense, he will get hired away as a head coach. Do you think it is that binary?
I don't think it's that binary. So if that's the judge verdict is, do I agree with Zach or Bo? I guess I'm on Team Bo for this one, because I agree that if you ask me to take a percentage, I would say maybe 60, 70% chance, because there's a 30% chance the offense doesn't improve in a meaningful way and the whole staff is different next year. And there's probably a 20, 30% chance that the offense improves significantly. And every team that has a head coaching vacancy is going to look at Kellen Moore as somebody who's been, on the upward trajectory of head coaching candidacy for a while. He's gotten looks for head coaching jobs. It's not like he'd be coming out of left field. And, the hot offensive play callers are always in demand. So I do think it's probably more likely than not that he is here for 1 year. But I think that there's also always, the possibility, the Ben Johnsons of the world, where it just doesn't work out for some reason. And there's a world where everything's kind of just good enough, where everybody kind of stays in place. And, I think there are scenarios where he stays, but whether it's because things are, maybe just a little bit better than they were last year.
Right.
The team kind of, wins 11, 12 games and everything the status quo remains the same, or a world where, the openings just aren't very good. I think it's going to be another competitive head coaching cycle next year with Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, some guys available. So I think that there's a world where he doesn't get a job, but I do think, to your point, Zach, I think that there's a real chance that he's not here next year because of those circumstances.
Yeah, so first off, I need to correct something. I said Justin Fields in a losing effort against Clemson. They beat Clemson in that game. I just want to make sure.
You were the only one that was going to get that right, though.
But that would have been on my conscience. All right. I'm sorry for crashing the show. I just can't stand it.
You got to do what you got to do.
Kellen Moore. Okay. The last two times the Eagles made the Super Bowl, their offensive coordinator got head coaching jobs. Okay, I'm not saying the Eagles are going to make the Super Bowl this year, but I think we can all agree if the Eagles don't have playoff success this year, then Nick Sirianni's probably not back, right?
I don't think it's quite that. I mean, if they go 15-2,
sure,
and then lose in the first round of the playoffs.
I don't know. That still might be an interesting scenario.
But I think there is middle ground where, or if they get beset by injuries and still semi overachieve based on that, they're not going to clean house.
I also don't think there's a scenario where the Eagles are good this year and the offense isn't good. Okay, or the offense is mediocre. I think if the Eagles are good, presumably, and I know there's a lot of variables here, but presumably, here's the young offensive coordinator who came in and fixed this offense that was stale. Okay? Here's this young offensive coordinator that's interviewed for head coaching jobs each of the last 3 off seasons, each of the last 4. The Eagles interviewed him in 2021. I know that, right? The Panthers interviewed him in 2023. This past year, did the Chargers interview him internally?
I think they did.
Yeah. I would need to see what interviews he got in 2022. I would imagine, by the way, and I could be wrong here, and EJ's right that the Bill Belichick shadow looms throughout the NFC East. But if the Eagles are like runaway NFC East winners and the Cowboys regress, okay, Kellen Moore might be a candidate there. Like he's been well regarded in the past by Jerry Jones. But beyond that, Kellen Moore, I hate to say fits the profile because it should be more nuanced than that.
He's a young white guy.
No.
but he does
On
fit
the
that
on the
profile.
flip side, though, his name is not Mike, so
No, I'm
that
saying
works
he-
against him.
I'm saying the young offensive coordinator who calls plays, who works with quarterbacks, who's played in the league. Like there's a lot of ingredients there. And sure, he could be selective, but I also don't think the attachment to Philly is the same as like Ben Johnson in Detroit, right? I mean, Ben Johnson, part of that is like Dan Campbell's been really good to me. He wants to be selective. I think Kellen Moore, they're renting Kellen Moore. And you know, if the Eagles are really good and Kellen's still the offensive coordinator, then you can say this in jest, but it's probably he's probably like interviewing very poorly, right? Because I think the profile is there for him to be a head coach, and I think if the Eagles underachieve, they're cleaning house, and Jeffrey Lurie history, which would show, is probably bringing in an offensive-minded coach who wants his own OC, and even if it, you know, I think Vic Fangio would have more staying power here than Kellen Moore. But yeah, I am looking at this like Kellen Moore's here to fix this and move on, or he doesn't fix this and he moves on.
I have a hypothetical for you, and it's total hypothetical, and it's maybe a little silly season, especially it's June right now, and
I think I know where you're
25th.
going, and my answer is this was in Tic Zac Bo a few weeks ago, but go on.
So, is there a world where Kellen Moore is in the building in 2025, but Nick Sirianni's not in the building in 2025? Frank Reich, you know, Shane Steichen, you know, maybe this is like you were talking about Jeffrey Lurie's experience and like how many times have the Eagles lost their offensive coordinator and then gone, man, we really needed that guy in the building. So
yeah, we talked about this one. This is a good.
Yeah,
one.
sorry that I missed that show. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty unlikely. It would require. It would require like really silly antics on the sideline by Nick, like getting to Jeffrey Lurie and him tiring of that, and a real clash of personalities with Sirianni and Hurts. I feel like, and if Hurts is like plays at that 2022 level and has the juice and is like, I don't want this guy. Maybe
I think that's the scenario.
That's sort of the scenario, but I think it's pretty unlikely.
I think to build off EJ, I think the scenario is if Jalen loves this offense and Jalen's like, this is the reason why I'm back, right? And I don't want to learn a new offense next year.
The continuity side of things. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty far fetched.
Yeah, it's a pretty out there hypothetical, but I do think it's interesting.
Okay.
By the way, it's been, you know, that's been the conundrum in Dallas in the past with Jason Garrett and then with Kellen Moore, right? And I mean, Kellen Moore was thrusted upon Mike McCarthy because Jerry Jones did not want to lose him. Yeah. And then Mike McCarthy finally was like, I want my offense here. Yeah.
Well, speaking of departed coordinators or potentially departed coordinators, we had our what if show with Les yesterday. Les Bowen. And Zach made the case that maybe the Eagles should have even done the Gannon switch for Sirianni.
No, I did not say that. I did not say that.
So let's get you on the record here. Now that Bill Belichick is unemployed, do you agree with Zach that Jonathan Gannon is the biggest defensive genius working today?
Did not say that either.
I was going to say that's pretty far out there.
Do you agree that he is not to blame in any way for the Super Bowl loss? That he did the best that he could with everything at his disposal.
Right now, I feel like I've been transported to like several dinners, not to flex on you guys, but like several dinners I've had with you guys where this inevitably comes up, and it's just like you can just sit back and listen to you guys debate Jonathan Gannon's culpability in the Super Bowl.
Do you agree that the adjective positionless means that a player can play two different positions?
I feel like a couples therapist right now.
We might need one, yes.
I don't know if Jonathan Gannon is the greatest defensive mind in the NFL right now. I did not come prepared with a list of defensive minds in the NFL, but I mean, Todd Bowles, I think, is probably better than Jonathan Gannon, so there's one.
Todd Bowles from last year.
Temple guy. Yeah, gotta get the Temple shout out in there. So, yeah, I would say that Jonathan Gannon.
Do you think Jonathan Gannon?
I don't even know what I'm supposed to be saying about Jonathan Gannon.
So here, look, if there's any phrase that I've said the most in the past 10 months on the show is we don't need to relitigate Jonathan Gannon. We don't need to relitigate Jonathan Gannon. Somewhere in Istanbul, Deniz is like pulling out his hair right now, being like, Zach, you're an idiot, right? Look, all I'm saying is that the Eagles were number 3 in DVOA
Oh, now you think DVOA matters.
In 2022. They set a franchise record in sacks. Okay. They ranked number 12 and in third down. Okay. They ranked number 8 in scoring defense. All right. They had an extraordinary amount of success. Jonathan Gannon was the defensive coordinator. When Jonathan Gannon left, the defense regressed. Okay. I
don't think it's that 1-to-1.
It's not that 1-to-1. But I'm saying that Jonathan Gannon was a successful defensive coordinator.
Sure.
Were they good in the second half of the Super Bowl? No. There's no question about that. Okay? But I think that Philadelphia people, right? I think the reputation for Jonathan Gannon is not consistent with reality for a few reasons. Because the way it ended, and I've been on record saying Jonathan Gannon should have been more forthcoming, okay, with the organization. Certainly the second half of the Super Bowl was bad. They needed more answers. They also lost to the best quarterback in the NFL, and I think the best quarterback in NFL history, okay?
Brady taking shots.
I will say that about Mahomes. Also, personality-wise, Jonathan Gannon and scheme-wise, Jonathan Gannon was not Jim Johnson. Jonathan Gannon was not Buddy Ryan. I don't want to generalize, but I think this market has an appreciation for a certain style of defense. He's not Jim Schwartz. Although, you know, when I look at the Jonathan Gannon era, that 2022 defense is going to age really well in franchise history. Jonathan Gannon oversaw it, and both you guys can attest. If you speak to the defensive players who played for him, they had a lot of respect for the way,
Most of them.
Yeah. Josh Sweat. I've heard Hassan Reddick. Like, you go on, there's a lot of guys.
Not C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Not C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Not C.J. Gardner-Johnson, right? But I think that that's one that history will look more favorably upon Jonathan Gannon than.
Well, especially because you are writing the history book.
I got to say, Jonathan Gannon does not have a prominent spot in
what? What is in what?
In the franchise, Philadelphia Eagles, the curated history of the birds, which is available September 24th, wherever books are sold.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he was here for 2 of those 25 years.
We should have a graphic for the daily book plug. I think that would be a good.
But yeah, look, I am not gonna. We don't need to relitigate the Jonathan Gannon era. I understand. But I also know, and I have a world of respect for Professor Selman. But as I've told Professor Selman, it gets loud in an echo chamber, and
he's really in your head.
No, and sometimes that
even here.
There's a lot of expressions I could use. The first one through the wall always gets hurt. Don't be afraid to stand up for what you believe in, even if you're standing alone.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I don't think that applies here. That's an inside joke. But yes, we don't need to relitigate Jonathan Gannon.
Well, what we could relitigate, Zach, is how important sleep is. And you and I have this debate.
Yes.
Maybe some of us could be doing a better job, but at Sleep Healthy PA, Dr. Andrew Cohen will make sure that snoring and sleep apnea is not going to get in the way of you having the sleep that you deserve, the sleep that you need. At Sleep Healthy PA, they are committed to helping Philadelphia residents stop the snore and find solutions for sleep apnea that will allow you to rest well and improve your health. Dr. Andrew Cohen, board certified in dental sleep medicine, and his staff will work one-on-one with you to provide first-class care that will meet your needs. Many physicians aren't equipped to provide other options outside of CPAP machines. And if you're tired of a CPAP machine that's too cumbersome, if your significant other is tired of it too, by the way, Dr. AC says 50% of divorces cite snoring as a main issue. Based in Jenkintown, he has worked for years to educate dentists across the country on his personal approach to helping those with sleep apnea. His team is committed to stopping the snore. Tell him PHLY sent you and receive 15% off your initial workup. If you are experiencing sleep apnea and are looking for a custom solution to stop the snore, reach out to Dr. Andrew Cohen at sleephealthypa.com or call 215-337-2501 and tell him PHLY sent you.
EJ, in exactly 1 month, you're going to be on the practice field watching training camp.
Oh, that's exciting.
And it's going to be a sunny day. And, you might be taking your drive in and you might say, shoot, I forgot my sunglasses. Okay. And that's why it's always good to make sure you have a good pair of high quality sunglasses that don't cost a fortune. And they're high quality because people, there's 300,000 5-star reviews. And you'll find that with Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead. With quality shades built to last, our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. That's perfect for training camp. You just keep a pair in your car and they're there for training camp. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures and watching football practice. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. You can find a pair that's Cape Cod casual. You can find a pair that fits perfectly with that outfit. You can find a pair that fits with this very basic outfit I'm wearing right now. They probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. I wear Shady Rays while I drive, while I'm on the beach, while I'm playing ball with my son. They're versatile, they fit, you can see well, and I like the polarization of it as well. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. And if you don't love your shades, just exchange it for a new pair or return it within 30 days worry-free. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
EJ, do you agree that the layperson, the common man, does not deserve ease when they're trying to watch sports, and in fact, billionaires need more money?
I generally would not agree with that sentiment.
Okay.
This is making me nervous.
EJ, do you agree that the people that say, what's the expression Bo said before?
What's good for the
What's
goose
good
is
for the
good
goose
for
is
the
good
gander?
for the gander.
No, giving.
It's giving.
It's
Yes,
giving.
it's giving.
The people that say it's giving probably are not subscribing to traditional cable, okay? But they're subscribing to the streaming services. And the idea that something's on a streaming service as opposed to over-the-air cable is not a foreign concept to them. It's how they consume content. And I know that because I have 2 young kids who never put on the TV.
I should not have opened this
But
can of
they
worms.
are,
I'm sorry.
but
It was in my notes. I had to do it.
they watch YouTube, where you can watch PHLY coverage every day on our YouTube channel, or they go onto apps where they watch it.
Nobody's arguing against streaming, Zach.
You're
It's
literally
it's
arguing
the
against
bifurcation of all the different things that you're going to have to subscribe to in order to watch the things that you want to watch.
Once again, we don't need to relitigate this, but I think
But you are not. You are arguing something that nobody else.
No,
is
you
arguing.
are saying I am arguing for the billionaires, and that's literally not once
You said
what
they
I've ever
need more
said.
money in their pocket.
I've never once uttered that phrase.
I
and
do
please,
know Zach to be a big fan of capitalism, so this kind of tracks. Yeah.
All right, let's.
By the way, I have been. I don't know what's going on with this, but I keep getting people texting me to ask you about NVIDIA. What's going on with NVIDIA?
What's going on with NVIDIA?
Yeah.
If you invested 3 years ago, you'd be sitting pretty hot right now.
Okay. But not if you invested a week ago.
Well, I mean, it's a volatile stock, but I mean, they're up 6% today.
Okay.
So
All right. I don't know what's going on here.
yeah, they're up 6% today. What's going on with NVIDIA is that if you invested in
Zach,
NVIDIA,
Zach.
if you invested in NVIDIA a few years ago, you're sitting pretty good right now.
There's a twinkle in his eye.
Yeah, there is. There is. A couple things on offense I want to ask you about, AJ. Tyler Steen. Do you think that he is locked and loaded and ready to be the starting right guard?
I would put it like 85, 80%.
Okay.
I wouldn't put it 100. I mean, there's always that Andre Dillard training camp scenario where he struggles. I mean, he struggled last year, so it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to just they seem excited about him. They seem bullish on him, more bullish than even I expected. But this.
But do you think that they? When you say that,
Yeah.
what is it that makes it seem like they are bullish on him? Just the fact that he's gotten all the reps at right guard?
Yeah, and I do think Stoutland's praise of him. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go back and listen to what Stoutland said about Andre Dillard a couple years ago, and if he was bullish on Andre Dillard, because that's a cautionary tale to me. It's like if you haven't seen this guy do it on the field yet, if he struggles in training camp, they do have break in case of emergency options. Like I was surprised to see Here were a couple things that like made me think, okay, they feel a little bit better than I thought. I know it sounds a little silly, but Trevor Keegan being on the left side, not the right, to me was meaningful. It's like they're not loading up everything they can into right guard to try.
Yeah, but the flip side to that is that Matt Hennessy is only playing at right guard and not playing at center.
Yeah, I do think Matt Hennessy is probably the breaking case of emergency, but I think Mekhi Becton is also interesting there.
I think the fact that Mekhi Becton's never played guard in his life and he's playing guard in the spring is also suggestive of what they think of Tyler.
That was like my favorite thing about OTAs was like Mekhi Becton like famously was like refusing to play.
Yes,
I'm a
like,
left
man,
tackle.
I'll play anywhere here.
And then he's like, I'll play anywhere for this team. I'll run through a wall for this team. I love it here.
It's very funny.
Like that and the Hassan Reddick stuff all happening all at the same time. It's like the Jets must be furious with Eagles updates. But yeah, no, I do think that there are some like, sliding doors for Tyler Steen, which is why I wouldn't say he's completely locked into it. But I do think it would be reasonable to say he's the favorite. I thought Stoutland even talking about wanting to have the 5 guys, the 5-wheel drive, as he put it, have those 5 guys, create that chemistry with all those training camp reps. I think they're going to give him every chance to win the job, and it's just a matter of if he can do it. I don't know if he can do it. I mean, we haven't seen him.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles have seen the Eagles have seen a lot more of him than we have. So I would say it's more likely than not, but I do think there are some options for him.
I think if they were entrenched on their Tyler Steen stock, so to speak, then they wouldn't have brought in Troy Faltano. They wouldn't have brought in they would not have brought in Fuaga. They would not have done as much work on first round offensive tackles who can play offensive guard as they did. I think if they were as entrenched on Tyler Steen as they say they are, Sua Opeta would not have started over him last year. Now, a player can get better, and I do think Tyler Steen's the favorite. And I think barring Tyler Steen playing poorly this summer, Tyler Steen will start week 1. But I don't think the Eagles went into this offseason saying Tyler Steen's our right guard no matter what, whereas they went into this offseason saying Cam Jurgens is our starting center no matter what.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think you and I actually agree on this, Zach. I think to me it's more like 60-65 turkeys on Steen. I think they are very prepared for the possibility that he is not going to be their right guard.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah. The Becton thing's interesting to me. He's like, I mean, like as much as Stoutland talks about Brandon Brooks being the template and like wanting like a massive guard. And the thing is like, I don't remember, I'm going to do the people thing again. And I apologize. I've heard like, oh, well, Becton is too tall. He's not the body type for guard. Landon Dickerson is literally like an inch shorter than Mekhi Becton. Like,
and
they
Brooks
like
was
that.
pretty big too.
Yeah, they like those supersized guards. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, maybe that's why Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the ball over the middle of the field.
Honestly, it'd be a fair excuse. Yeah.
Also, Lane Johnson said, now the practices we were at, Mekhi Becton played left guard, but Lane Johnson said he played right guard next to him during an OTA period, correct? That's what Lane said, if memory serves correct. I mean, Lane's the one who volunteered that he played guard next to him, right?
Yeah. So, he did, yeah.
Running back number 2.
Yeah.
This is one where Zach and I don't even know if it's a strong disagreement, but he's on the Will Shipley side. I'm on the Kenny Gainwell side. Just the bias of what's already there. Where do you stand?
I'm on both sides with this one. I'm sorry, Zach. I would like to see it with Will Shipley first. I wouldn't. I mean, he had the one day in OTAs where he caught a lot of passes, but I feel like that's Saquon's role. And whatever, I feel like Kenny Gainwell is a misunderstood player in a sense because like you look at his college production, you look at his body type, and you think he's a third down back.
Yeah,
he's really not. He's been more of a short yardage.
Yeah.
Like he's got decent vision. He's like decent between the tackles for a guy his size. So I think that's what I see his role being. And I think like there's more of a chance for him to take some snaps off of Saquon's plate on early downs, maybe like, in situations where like it's like 2nd and 5 or something like that. I do think you might see more of Kenny Gainwell in that scenario.
Right.
Because I think that Saquon is going to be on the field for 3rd down. So I don't know. I think it's more about stylistically. I feel like he might fit a little bit more into a complementary role with Saquon. I'd be surprised if it's like, oh, it's 3rd and 7. Third and medium, right? And it's like
let's take Saquon off the field.
Exactly. Let's get Will Shipley on the field. I don't know. I would like to see it first with him. Is what I would say.
Okay, my counter here,
please.
Okay, since 2008, can you name the Eagles' 3 highest drafted running backs?
Donnell Pumphrey, Miles Sanders, and
Kenny Gainwell, right?
No, is it game? No.
LaShawn McCoy.
Shipley's ahead of.
LaShawn McCoy, Miles Sanders, Will Shipley. Okay.
This is it's a very minor distinction between Shipley and Pumphrey.
Please let me continue here. Okay. Will Shipley. So in Kenny Gainwell's case, he's coming off his fewest yards per touch in his NFL career of these 3 seasons. He's entering the last year of his contract. Okay. There's a new offensive coordinator here who's not as wedded to him, is not as invested in him as Nick Sirianni was. Okay. And I think Nick Sirianni's been a big advocate for Kenny Gainwell. Will Shipley, we've seen from the team's internal media, this is not a running back like Donnell Pumphrey, who they ended up with. Yeah. This is a running back who they targeted. This is a red star player. This is someone who at the start of the day in the draft room, they're saying we need to get Will Shipley. Okay. I think that, and I like Kenny Gainwell. I think Kenny Gainwell's I don't want to say a better player than the reputation suggests.
Yeah.
But I really liked what Kenny Gainwell did in the postseason 2 years ago. I think that last year Kenny Gainwell had opportunity to have a more prominent role.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Week 1 last year, Kenny Gainwell was their guy, right? The reason the Eagles went to DeAndre Swift last year was because they thought he was better than Kenny Gainwell. Now, Kenny Gainwell might be just a fine second back, but I think that the team's invested in Will Shipley. I think the team likes Will Shipley more than the public does, number one. I think that the draft investment cannot be understated here. He was their top offensive player drafted this year. I think that Will Shipley has shown that he can be a 3-down back. If Saquon Barkley goes down, I think Will Shipley would have a bigger role than Kenny Gainwell.
I think you are right that they liked him, and it's different. They definitely like him more than consensus. I mean, by definition, you draft a guy, but
sure.
the
Kenny
videos
they ended up with, I'm sorry, not Kenny Gainwell. Donnell Pumphrey, they ended up with Pumphrey. That wasn't their.
That's
target.
fine.
Yeah.
However, it's hanging on your conscience that you got the Justin Fields thing wrong. The manipulation of stats of numbers that you just used is criminal. Lumping Will Shipley in with Miles Sanders as opposed to Donnell Pumphrey. He was drafted 74 picks after Miles Sanders was. He was drafted 5 spots away from where Donnell Pumphrey was, as if that's the demarcation. Give me a break.
Bo, there was... What I said was a factual comment that the 3 highest drafted running backs since 2008 are LaShawn McCoy, Miles Sanders, and Will Shipley. Look, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your facts. Okay,
yeah, but
that is a fact. That is a fact. That is a verifiable fact.
All I'm saying is Will Shipley. The Eagles haven't had a white running back since Steve Van Buren, so Will Shipley is going to the Hall of Fame.
First of all, I don't think that's accurate. Actually, okay, number one. But all I'm saying is there's a 4th round running back is an investment here. Their highest drafted offensive player.
Sure. There's also a very long history of the front office liking players more than the coaching staff.
I was going to say the red star player thing was like a Sidney Brown argument last year, and he didn't see the field for like more than half the season. So
that's fair.
And to circle back to what you said earlier, it's possible that the not throwing to running backs thing is more of a Jalen Hurts thing than anything else. And if that's the case, what is Will Shipley's role? Spirited Will Shipley.
I was going to say this turned into like a political debate.
Plus, if you really want to know why Bo is against Will Shipley, okay? Do you know where Will Shipley's brother went to college?
That has honestly nothing to do with it.
Okay, yeah, so the Princeton bias is at play.
Yeah, that must be it. Must be it. Anything else you'd like to get off your chest, DJ?
Eagles or non-Eagles?
Anything.
We're so thrilled you're here. It's a summer day.
Yeah, I'm going to keep you captive here.
No, I don't think I have any. That was like a. Do I have anything to call out? Not really. You guys are catching me off vacation, so I'm like pretty relaxed.
Vacation, EJ.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, like I literally came out of vacation for you guys. So.
Wow.
First off, we're flattered by that.
I was flattered to finally show up in the studio.
I have 2 questions for you. Number one, what's it like in studio compared? Like, how does it compare to? I guess what you think of the show when you're watching or listening at home.
It definitely tracks. I would say your studio looks very modern and nice, and I would call the whole building modern and nice. The thing that surprised me, pleasantly surprised, it's nice and cold in here. You guys keep it like properly frigid in this place, which I appreciate because you get behind the lights, you get on camera, you might get a little hot, and then you're worried if you start sweating. You're like, oh no, I'm sweating on camera. No worries about that here, and I can appreciate that. You know, as someone who likes to keep the house around 68, my wife likes it around 72. Yeah, this is
not a huge difference, but yeah,
72 is really hot for me. And every house is different.
68 is really cold for me.
Humidity is a big factor in all this, and I'm a humidity nerd in my house.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
How does this go?
I like to keep it below 50% humidity because then that helps with the.
Really?
Then if we're at 70, at least I'm like not sweating in my own house. That's my like tagline. Sweating in my own house is what I'll say.
I like that. Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate the temperature in this place for sure.
Okay.
And then can we hold you for 2 more minutes here?
Oh, absolutely.
Whenever we have somebody here, I'm always interested in an origin story. What's your welcome to the Eagles beat moment, number one? and you know, there's people watching here who are a big admirer of your work. You've really established a strong reputation in this market on the Eagles beat. What's been the key to the rise of EJ, if you will?
Well, my welcome to the Eagles moment's easier to come up with than the second one. I think it was my first day at Eagles training camp. This was back when I was a general assignment reporter who was supposed to be helping. And, you know, I'd covered college sports at Temple for a while, and I knew better than to go show up to the beat, you know, Les, Damo, and Jeff and go, I want to write about Carson Wentz on the first day. So I go up to Jeff, and I'm like, you know, Jeff McClain, great, like my colleague, become a good friend of mine. This is mostly just funny at this point. I go to him and I was like, hey, like, you know, I want to write about Sidney Jones, you know, like off the radar a little bit, you know, shows I'm like, you know, trying to pay my dues a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
And he goes, he's a first round pick. How about Joe Ostman? And I like quick Google, like, who is Joe Ostman? Like 89th guy on the roster, defensive end out of Central Michigan.
Yeah, he's killing Jordan Mailata.
Yeah, best friends with Jordan Mailata. Yeah, which I ended up writing about a couple years later. And what I would tell
He's got the family bakery on the UP.
He does. Yeah. Daniel Gallen actually went to that bakery.
Yes, I know.
Shout out to Daniel.
Shout out to Daniel Gallen. Yeah, I saw him a couple months ago actually.
Yes, did I?
So I wrote and this is what I would tell to young journalists out there. I wasn't discouraged by writing Joe Ostman at all. I wrote Joe Ostman like I would have written Carson Wentz.
Well
like I tried as hard. I made extra calls on it. Shout out to Les Bowen for helping me figure out like a good angle into the story. So yeah, that was definitely my welcome to the Eagles beat. It's like they're not going to just trust you to write about anybody, pretty much. Like you got to earn it. So yeah, that's definitely my welcome.
That's a good story.
Welcome to the Eagles beat moment. In terms of the rise of me,
the rise of EJ.
Yeah, I don't want to go third person on your show here.
No periods in EJ, by the way, for those of you.
Periods.
Don't make that mistake like I did.
I would just say I've been really fortunate to work with some really awesome people and some people who gave me opportunities. You know, I started at the Inquirer as a high school sports coordinator and a copy editor.
You did well then.
And you know, I basically my motto is to make it so they never wanted me to leave the building, and I've been really fortunate that people have seen that and, you know, rewarded that. It's not very often that you see people like come up through one place and, you know, make it to an NFL beat at one paper. So I'm very thankful for those people is what I would say.
Amen to that.
Good answer.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go like all
that's okay.
straight
I think we've actually already
Yeah.
talked about peeing sitting down. I know that we teased that in the intro,
Yeah,
but I
it's
feel like
ridiculous.
we can leave that on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Although there is a chat who wants to know if you also think it's unbecoming for a man to see Barbie.
Oh, so that was when you
what?
texted me about the peeing sitting down topic being a possibility. I was going to say Zach has a couple of like machismo, like kind of like false bravado, like.
You said it, not me.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with like. I mean, listen, I'm not saying I'm doing it a lot, but like, you know, never. And I have not seen Barbie, but there's nothing wrong with seeing Barbie. For a while,
I didn't say there's anything wrong with it. I just don't. That's the thing. You guys created it.
You were like taken aback that he would even suggest you'd seen it. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
I mean, I've never seen Inside Out 1.
That's a good movie.
I saw Inside Out 2. But yeah, that like I don't go to the movies that often. I went to see Oppenheimer because it's Oppenheimer. Okay.
But you were at the movies already. You could have doubled up, done the Barbenheimer.
Then the people. I never knew this was a thing people did until Bo brought it up on the show. I have nothing against people who sit down. Brandon Brooks is with me here. Okay,
Yeah, that's true.
like it's so much less efficient. But again, we don't need to relitigate whatever you do in the privacy of your bathroom is between you and the four walls. Okay.
What if it's an open concept bathroom?
Between you and the open concept
I don't know
bathroom.
if I've ever heard of that before. Not sure I'm into that idea. Never in public though. The fewer times you can interact with a public toilet seat, the better, in my opinion.
Well said.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah. I mean, nobody's.
agree there.
Absolutely.
But you were on my side. Sorry. Well,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
you were on my side with the media house bathroom.
Oh yeah.
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 You don't touch that. You don't touch the seat.
No.
You don't touch the
That's
seat.
very, very selfish.
No. Like if it's.
You got to get in and out of that place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's selfish. There's women in there.
You got to be accurate. You have to be deadly accurate.
If it's down, you pull
Oh
it up.
yeah, but
I'm saying,
if you want to pee on the down seat and be accurate, that's fine.
no.
And clean up
no,
and
you
clean
always
up after
pull it
you
up.
and clean
You
up
clean
after
up
yourself.
after, for
but
sure.
if you pull it
but
up, you got to put it
deadly
down.
accurate. If you
If you
gotta
pull
put
it up,
down.
you pull it. But
If it's already up, you're
if it's
not
already
touching
up, you're not touching it. You're not pulling it down at that point.
Yes. Look out for the people around you, Julia. What do we think? The situation here, there are two bathrooms
No, you
in
want
the
to get
media
in
house.
and out as quickly as you can.
It is 90% men, but there are women there. And if you walked into the bathroom and the seat was still up, would you or would you not be a little bit annoyed?
I would be a little bit annoyed, yeah.
My point is this: if I pull it up, I'm pulling it down. If it's up, I'm not touching it.
What happened to
But then we have to
character
touch it.
matters? What happened to
This isn't a lack of
looking
character.
looking out for the betterment of society and not covering up for other people? It's
Leave it
all
better than
of
you
a
found
sudden
it.
in the bathroom. It's all about me. It's only me.
No.
I only answer to myself.
Leave it better than you found it, I guess.
Yeah.
If it's up, I'm straightening it like a urinal. Okay. If it's down, I'm pulling it up and then bringing it down. I think it's worse to pee with the seat down.
I would never do
I
that.
would never
But I
pee
thought
with the
that
seat
was
down.
easy.
Yeah.
I would just clean after the end if you need to, but like I said, you have to be deadly accurate.
Yeah, I do think that is also a violation.
Yeah, that's a violation.
You think that's a violation? All right.
Yes.
All right.
I think
Well,
that's a
listen,
violation.
bathroom etiquette. This is important because like most people go their whole lives without talking about these things. So you guys
Yeah.
are doing like a public service here.
I'm glad that we have a voice of a woman.
I'm focused on being in there as
Yeah, that's
little
selfish.
as I can. As little, in,
That's
out,
selfish.
wash the hands, leave.
I'm with Zach on this.
Yeah.
You got to be as efficient as possible in there.
If it's
It's
down,
incredibly selfish.
I'm returning it here. I'm leaving it as I found it.
Again,
I'm
it
leaving it as I
remains
found it.
incredibly selfish.
Okay.
Have a little courtesy. What happened? What happened to chivalry in this country?
Is that an example of chivalry?
Yeah, I think so.
I actually think it is chivalrous to put the seat down, but I'm not saying that I'm doing it. maybe you'll like
couple scallywags.
maybe
over
like you
here.
get a paper towel and you do it that way. I don't want to touch anything.
I
in
don't
the
want to touch it,
You do the elbow on
but
the
you got to
sink.
do what's for the betterment of society.
I think I'm helping society by not touching it. Right?
No. It has spoken. All right. I guess that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles Podcast. I'll tell you guys my softball story tomorrow. What's on my conscience about that. But we will get to that later. Thank you to EJ for making the effort on vacation, no less, from the barbershop. Fantastic. We will be back tomorrow at noon. We're actually doing a mailbag. So send us your questions, a little midweek mailbag before Zach and I sort of part ways. He's going vacation. I'm going on vacation. So we want to get one more in. Send us your questions tomorrow at noon right here on PHLY. So for EJ and Zach and Julia, thank you for listening and watching. Make sure you subscribe and like the video, all that good stuff. For all of us, we thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.